This book I decided to read because I read David Deutsch book. Uh, I forgot the theory of infinity, something like that. I forgot. I got to go back and look. I guess I should have looked up that book before I started making the review of this book. But Fabric of Reality is a book written before that. I think Theory of Infinity is the one that I read before because David Deutsch's theory is there's infinite amount of knowledge or infinity. There's no like everything is known kind of deal. It's always evolving, so nothing is ever fixed. No matter how much we think science, kind of like the famous saying, one of the former officials, I would say, science is settled. The most idiotic statement ever made by anyone. Science is never settled. That's the thing we learn constantly. Every day, different theory comes out. Probably discounting some other theory or enhancing that theory, right? Like proving out the theory. So anyway, The Fabric of Reality is a very interesting book and a multiple. It basically goes into David goes into four strands. I was trying to remember the exactly the four strands, but I don't. I was trying to look through the notes again. I couldn't remember, but the main one is really about multi-universe and also quantum theory. Quantum theory actually proves there's multi-universe. And this is the thing that I didn't understand about multi-universe before I read this book. And David's essentially explanation of that basically talks about the experiment on, light passing through some holes, how they pass through the holes depending on the distance, how it changes, and then how some of the light disappears. Where does it disappear? I'm kind of paraphrasing and trying to remember things, so don't go by that explanation. But it's somewhat related to that. But then that's where scientists found out that they disappear into different universes, or there are other particles or universes interfering with the particles in this universe. So this could be infinite number of universes. So we kind of, I don't know exactly how it was proven, but anyway, if you go read it, I might have to probably listen to it multiple times before I truly understand what David explaining that theory. So anyway, that's one of the big ones I learned from this book is I used to think multi-universe was something else versus how he explains it kind of gives a little bit of clarity on how multi-universe is supposed to be thought of. But then he goes into, Dawkins' theories and also Darwin, evolution, and also Popper, Karl Popper, whose books I haven't read yet. I've heard of it multiple times, which is I bought the book, so I'll be reading a book of his soon about epistemology and all that, on how things are proven over time or kind of have a evolution. Well, Darwinism is evolution, and epistemology is linking through logical linking. Um, but anyway, he talks about four different things, strands, forming the fabric of reality. But then at the same time, fabric of reality is so strange, is not predictable. Again, one of the things with quantum theory, physics, that's constantly talked about is observer effect, right? So that's kind of not, he did discuss that in this a little bit, but that again follows the multi-universe theory, I believe. That's what it goes into. Again, I'll have to read it multiple times before I probably get even 25% of the book because it's very I mean, it's a very large book in the sense it's, small letters, so, and then a lot of explanations, and he goes into long explanation on several physics and all. He's a theoretical physicist, one of the most brilliant guys, from what I know, what I understand, right? His theories are very like out there and very in depth and really well studied. He studies well and he's well known. So anyway, what I got from this book is, um, I guess I don't know if I was going to get this or not, but I was thinking maybe that's what it might be. Fabric of reality might be like, hey, reality is not what it seems like. Um, but he goes into, I guess, both, right? Reality is not exactly what it seems like. Like time, for example, is relative, which I read another book of on quantum gravity and how time is completely relative, right? He goes into that too, that factor. But combined with that, and then quantum physics or quantum theories, and the multi-universe theory, all that stuff, right? So fabric of reality is much more expansive than how we think it is. Whether you think philosophically or whether you think spiritually or scientifically. Now he doesn't go into spirituality and all that stuff. He goes just pure science, what's there. So, but from what I've enough reading enough, or at least understanding, I would say 10% of the book, maybe 20% at the best. Maybe I would say 10%, because I'm kind of fuzzy on the details on the four strands. Although I kind of know the strands he discussed, I'm just forgetting which are like he discusses mathematics, he discusses epistemology, he discusses evolution, inductivism, so on and so forth. So many different theories of science too, right? Where people have evolved with science, right? Theories of science. I just don't remember the four strands he talks about the fabric of reality for me. Right now, on top of my head, I was trying to look up the notes before I did the review. But anyway, bottom line is, highly recommend. Maybe listen to the book, maybe get the Audible or something, and listen to it multiple times. Because it might be a little bit of a hard follow at times, because there's so much, I guess, science discussions and evolution discussion, so on and so forth, that you might get lost in the weeds. And then, obviously you have to go back and listen multiple times before you truly get it. But highly recommend reading this book, Fabric of Reality, if you're a science buff especially, kind of want to understand what parallel universe means. I would say highly recommend. I haven't heard this explanation of parallel universe from anybody else, or maybe they did, I didn't understand it, but how David Deutsch kind of explains is much more simpler for me to grasp versus what others explain, right? Where I was this whole sci-fi where, oh, you can cross over, go to other, universe and all that stuff. It's not that. It's more of a, it just exists. And he doesn't rule out possibility that one could traverse into other universe or travel through time, all that stuff, right? He goes through that. By the way, that's another thing he goes through that. First, he says, people think time travel is not possible because of the paradoxes, grandfather paradox, and all that stuff, right? But then he goes through, in theory, how that could work, and where grandfather paradox is like a theory, but potentially not a reality, right? So that's kind of where the whole thing is about fabric of reality. It's like all these theories are great, but is that reality? So that's the interesting. Anyway, highly recommend reading this book. I know it wasn't so clear as other books I probably shared, but one thing I can say, I highly recommend you guys checking this out.